About, well, you've got to be really excited at this point because the game is poised to come out, and I have to say, as somebody who's never tried it before, it's just so engaging.
You know, that's certainly the reaction we hope to get, but when you're slaving away in the dark as a game developer, you never know until the game actually gets in players' hands. So I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah, and it's so, I love how you've got all the different characters in there too. Is there any process into choosing the ones? Because I know you have a wide range, classic all the way up to Rapunzel, really.
Yeah, well, one of the interesting things is in Wasteland, which is the world we created for the Disney Epic Mickey games.
Yeah.
It's kind of a repository for all the forgotten and rejected stuff. And one of the things we wanted to play with in the 3DS game was how do we get some of those characters that we want to play with but can't because they're not forgotten or rejected into the world. And so I think Peter Ong at Dreamrift and his team came up with a pretty clever way of doing that, which I'm not going to reveal because I want players to discover it for themselves. But the process of deciding what we were going to do in the 3DS game was really which well-remembered, well-loved characters do we want to include that we haven't been able to play with before.
Yeah, it's really nice expansion, and basically also I really like, the callbacks to the Sega Genesis. So what do you think is kind of drawing people to those retro? I know some like me grew up with that, but the young gamers seem to love it too.
There's a simplicity and a purity and just a fun quality to those 16-bit games. 8-bit is great. I mean, I certainly lived through that era.
Yes.
But I remember so vividly the first time I saw a Sega Genesis. I saw Sonic running on the Sega Genesis, and I was blown away. And over the years, our graphical capabilities have gotten so much greater, and our ability to recreate the real world has been so much greater. And I think people really just respond well to simple, elegant, pretty games. And that's what we've tried to deliver, a simple, elegant game.
Yeah, I think you've really accomplished that. And then with the Disney library, how is that like? How closely do you work with Disney on like the character integrity and integrating that to make sure that it's true to Disney?
We work very closely with the folks at Disney. I've gotten to know some folks at corporate brand management, at Disney Character Voice, and Disney Feature Animation. I mean, like it sounds like oh my gosh, there's all this bureaucracy. It's like no, there are all these Disney fans. It's amazing, That's just been incredible. I mean, there are all these people who love these characters, and we're all charged with protecting them, I guess, in a weird sort of way. The thing you hear over and over again when you're working on a Disney project, when you talk to normal people, is don't mess with my childhood. And there's this really overwhelming but positive sense of contributing to something and honoring people's childhoods and reminding them what it was like to be a kid. There's an awesome sense of responsibility about not wanting to mess it up, and so you kind of have to work with the guys at Disney, to make sure you get it right, and we do.
Yeah, I really like that, and seeing the characters, is so exciting as you go through the levels. Now, of course, you've got that built-in fan base with Disney. Do you think you're also reaching, even, the original Epic Mickey, reaching people that really weren't Disney fans and really just got drawn in by the gameplay?
Yeah, one of the big appeals for me, other than the fact that I'm just a big Disney geek myself, one of the big appeals to working with Disney and working on games like this was the opportunity to reach a much broader audience than I've ever been able to reach before. I mean, I've been making games for 30 years.
Wow.
And I've created some pretty well-known games among, gamers.
Mm-hmm.
But I could go out on the street and say, I created J.C. Denton. And, 15 gamers would go, wow! But I go out in the real world and say, I'm making a Mickey Mouse game, and everybody in the world knows what I'm talking about and is interested and has questions. I mean, that's amazing. So I can take the gameplay ideas that I think are interesting and important and reach non-gamers with it. And I can take these characters that I love and reach gamers with it. And all of a sudden, we've achieved one of our major goals, or one of my major goals, which is to make a game that has the same kind of appeal that a Pixar film does, or a Disney classic. No one says Toy Story is just for teen boys, and yet it's typical to say we're going to make a game just for teen boys or just for tween girls or something. I charged the team with making games that appeal to everyone, in the same way that Tangled does or Up does, and not patting ourselves on the back. You look at who bought and played Disney Epic Mickey, the first game in the series, and we did it. It's more than half of our audience was over 18, but about 40% of our audience was under 13. And boys and girls, men and women equally. So we made a game. We proved that a game can appeal to a broad audience. Gamers, non-gamers, Disney fans, non-Disney fans. I love that.
Oh,
We have time for
absolutely.
one more question.
And for the DS, because now I'm a Wii person, and so this was my first time, but really the tutorials just got me. I couldn't believe the progress that I made. So you kind of build that in, for a person who may not even have that experience and just moving to the console because they want to try out the game and get drawn into using the handheld 3D console.
Well, let's give credit where credit is due. That's all on Peter Ong and his team at Dreamrift. We partnered with some great people, really talented, love Disney as much as we do, and really understand that platform. The Nintendo 3DS is a wonderful platform, very different than a traditional console,
Yes.
and Peter and his team just get it. So if you were able to get into it that easily,
Yes.
let's point the finger of credit at Peter and his team.
Yeah, he gets a big thumbs up for that.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with us today.
Oh, my pleasure.